Welcome all. My name is Jack Sinnott, and I'm the chair of SpEdPAC. This is our October 2023 general meeting, our second meeting of the school year. Interpreters, sign language interpreters, please let us know if we're speaking too quickly so we don't wear you out before the evening is over. Thank you. We've got a lot to do tonight, so let's just dive right into it. We'll be making a couple of brief announcements. Then we're going to have our feature topic, Boston Public Schools transportation, with questions and hopefully some good answers from SpEdPAC members. And then at 8:15, we're actually holding a special election. This is a change from our usual. Let me explain. Our secretary, the secretary officer, has resigned from the board for personal reasons. Our treasurer, Audrey, has graciously agreed to fill in as interim secretary until we can find a replacement. But this is temporary. We really need a permanent secretary. So after this evening's presentation about transportation and after the Q&A, we're going to hold a special election to fill the position of secretary on our board. Now, we'll provide the details about how we're going to do this later, and we'll include like what the position entails and how much of a commitment it is. But for now, if you're a parent or guardian of a child with an IEP or a 504, or either in BPS or in an out-of-district placement, then you are eligible to be a candidate, and I hope you'll think about it. Thanks very much. The other announcements. The meeting is being recorded and it'll be posted on the YouTube channel. If you have any questions or wish to ask questions about your student, please be mindful of any personally identifiable information about your student. This is going out. So next thing, we need volunteers, especially for social media. If you've got an hour a week to help us, please let us go. And just to ad-lib something here, I promise that if you're the social media person and I ask a stupid question, you're allowed to roll your eyes at me and say, okay, boomer. All right. I think that's a big bonus for the social media person. So I hope everybody steps up to that. We're going to have links in the chat and for all the presentations, but the first link we wanted to put up there was our email sign up. It's fast and easy, and please, if you're not already on our email, sign up for it. The next general meeting after this is November 16th. That's in person. It's going to be a resource fair from 5 to 7. I believe in Dorchester at Andrea, which
at the Murphy.
The Murphy, yes, thank you. So I hope your calendar is free and you can come down and see all the resources that you can take advantage of. And finally, of course, please consider running for the special election, but we'll cover that after the transportation presentation and any questions and answers. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to our Vice Chair, Kelsey, and let's get started on that transportation. Thanks, Kelsey.
Thanks so much. Welcome, everyone. We're so happy to have you here, as Jack said. This is a really exciting night. We've got lots in store for you, namely a couple of presentations right in a row. And before we get into those more specifically, again, I want to thank you for being here and remind you that you're the reason. Our membership is the reason that the work matters, and it's because you're here for it. So we hope you'll learn a lot tonight and always help each other, of course, at the same time. A couple of other folks who are joining us tonight, we're really grateful that they're here to help and support in addition to the speakers. I just wanted to let you know who they were so that if you see them pop up from here and then, or in the chat, you'll know who they are. We're really grateful that we have support from BPS helping to answer your more specific questions after the presentation. We have Lauren Shannon and Tanisha Ruhak. They're assistant directors. We also are lucky to have Zach Houston, who's the assistant director for applied behavioral analysis. And Dr. Linda Chen is also here. She's a senior deputy director of academics. So those are some faces many of you have probably been introduced to already. And if not, we're glad you'll see them here. And then on for our presentation. So we should get right into that. We know why you're all here, and it's obviously to learn all that you can about transportation, what's new about transportation process at BPS, what you may think you already know, and what you're here to learn more about. So the first presentation will be by Dan Rosenguard, and he's the Executive Director of Transportation at BPS, and he'll be giving transportation updates and resources and a really sort of comprehensive view on all things new, expected, and otherwise about BPS transportation. And he'll be joined by Carrie Norman, who's the Special Education Transportation Compliance Manager at Boston Public Schools. So delighted to have her here as well. And that will go on for 10 minutes or so. And then following the BPS presentation, you'll hear from the Mass Advocates for Children, otherwise known as MAC. So we've got a couple of folks here who will be following BPS's transportation with some additional knowledge about providing sort of an overview of transportation rights and some extra details that may become helpful for our families. We have Audrey Wynn, who's a staff attorney at Mass Advocates for Children. We have Jakira Rogers, who's a program director for Racial Equity and Access Program with that same organization. And Alison Sexson is a staff attorney at the Greater Boston Legal Services. So they will be joining us in that part of the presentation. Most importantly, when everyone is done speaking, we will turn our attention to really the most vital part of this evening, and that's to all of you. Your voices are the ones that we seek to amplify. Yours are the ones that matter, and this forum and this meeting belongs to you. So we'll be so excited to take as many questions as we can in the chat. Raise your hands. We'll get to, as I said, as many as we possibly can and steer them where they need to go. One last note before we begin, I would just caution everyone, to be mindful when you're talking about your family, your child, or someone you are taking care of, to just be mindful about the level of detail you provide in the chat or in asking a question. Not doing that won't mean somebody won't get back to you and respond. As I said, BPS is here and delighted to help and partner with you to find a good next step. So you can put all those details in the chat, but I would just be mindful if you have something very, very specific or private in nature, you can offer your contact details and they can follow up with you afterwards. So with those things in mind, let's get started. And our first speaker, as I said, is Dan Rosenguard to present on behalf of BPS. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Carrie, so much for getting us started.
Thank you, Kelsey. Just wanted to check, should I be sharing my screen or?
It's up to you. Jack can continue sharing. He has a copy of your presentation, or if you'd like to share, you can too.
Nope, that would be great. One last thing for me to worry about. Thank you. Then thank you everyone for having us here tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and appreciate the introduction again. My name is Dan Rosenguard, the Executive Director of Transportation for BPS, and joined by Carrie Norman, our Special Education Transportation Compliance Manager, as well as a few other of our colleagues. We're again really appreciate the chance to be here and to listen and to share with you a little bit, but also to hear from you. Every day, BPS yellow buses transport 22,000 students, including about 6,000 students who have transportation accommodations within their IEP or 504 plan. And access to safe, reliable, and on-time bus service is really key to making sure that our students have equitable access to education and that they arrive at school ready to learn. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge upfront that in many ways, and for too long, BPS has fallen short of providing students and families with that transportation service that they deserve. I think we have an incredible and a dedicated team that works very, very hard every day to support our students. And we've made significant strides over the past several years, but we also know that things are not yet where they need to be. And so I think for me and for the rest of us, that only amplifies why it's so important for us to be in spaces like this, so that we're not just sharing with you the work we're doing, but most importantly, that we're here to listen and to learn from the families who rely on the school bus every day. So with that in mind, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to try to do my best to keep the presentation brief so that we leave as much time as possible for us to hear from you and the questions that you have. I want to start with a brief overview of some of the key resources that we have available for families to learn about BPS transportation and to interact with us. For those of you who might be new to the district, or just as a refresher for everybody. And this is only a brief overview, but each of these resources, if you go to them, they have so much more information as well. First thing I want to highlight is our website, bostonpublicschools.org/transportation. Amongst other things, our website provides details on school bus eligibility, on our policies and our processes, and on transportation change requests. What are they? How can families submit them? How are they reviewed? And one thing I did want to note just about school bus eligibility, specifically for students with IEPs or 504 plans, is that any specialized transportation eligibility would be determined within those IEP or 504 plans, and our team would then work to implement whatever accommodations are listed within the plan. Second thing I wanted to highlight here, and you'll see a screenshot of it up on the right side of the slide here, is our Where's My School Bus site. This is a great resource. Families can log in using parent or guardian last name, student ID number, and student date of birth. And you can use this to track your child's bus in real time each morning and afternoon, so that you know where it is and when it's approaching the stop. And if you're able to jump to the next slide, also wanted to quickly highlight our customer service team and the work they do. The team is available from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and is focused on providing multilingual, accessible support for students, families, and schools. And there's a number of different ways you can reach out and contact our team. All of them are equally good. They'll all get you to the same place and the same people. You can submit a ticket on our support portal, which is linked here and shown on the right-hand side of the slide. You can email us at schoolbus@bostonpublicschools.org, and you can call our transportation hotline number 617-635-9520. And once you call that number, you can press 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, or also this is something that is in its second year now and has, I think, been a great addition, is you can press 3 to connect directly to a member of our bus monitors team if you're a family of a student with a bus monitor. So those, again, are just briefly some of the resources available, but definitely, please take a look at those and reach out, and the team is available to support, to answer any questions, to address any concerns or issues. But thank you. Next slide. Just want to provide a brief update on on-time performance and transportation performance so far this school year. Want to kind of start out by again highlighting our team is truly committed to making continuous improvements. I think we've made progress over the past few years, and I think that's highlighted here, and we're really encouraged by that. But by no means are we where we need to be yet, and we're going to continue working until we get to that point. But I think looking at so far this school year, first, BPS and TransDev started the school year fully staffed with bus drivers for the first time since prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. And, in contrast to the past 2 years where this has been a significant challenge, so far this year, we have not had any scheduled trips without driver coverage due to staffing issues. We've also seen gains in on-time performance. On the first day of school this year, our on-time performance improved 11 percentage points compared to the first day last year. And across the morning and afternoon, on-time performance in September of this year overall improved by 1 or 2 percentage points compared to September of last year. Then if you want to jump to the next slide, in addition to on-time performance, I also wanted to provide a brief update on our bus monitor staffing and training. Bus monitors are provided for students with disabilities whose IEP or 504 plan calls for an adult to provide additional support on the bus. This in particular is an area where we've seen really significant staffing shortages the past 2 years, and I think students have really been disproportionately impacted by that. And so this is something that we knew we needed to be, and we've been laser focused on addressing that staffing shortage over the last year or two. We started this school year with 675 bus monitors, which is nearly 200 more than a year ago. But we're not yet where we need to be, and we're going to continue working to recruit and hire until we can ensure that all student needs are met on a daily basis. And right now we have 53 hires pending, and we're continuing to interview every single day. Also, for this school year, we implemented a new coverage model with our bus monitors that was really focused on, first and foremost, ensuring that every bus transporting students with disabilities has at least one monitor on board. And this is an approach that we discussed with the SpEdPAC board and with our Transportation Advisory Council, as well as with our schools and other stakeholder groups prior to implementation, and is aimed at ensuring that we can provide a more equitable distribution of monitors across all buses and improve service for all students. And I think just as critical as staffing is the training of bus monitors. And so I also wanted to provide an update there. All of our bus monitors receive annual training across a suite of different topics designed to cover the range of needs that students may have and the actions that may be anticipated to occur on the bus. This training occurs every summer. And then over the past year, one of the things we're really excited about is we also added 2 program directors for transportation who sit in the Office of Specialized Services and whose core function is to provide supplementary individualized training and coaching for transportation providers based on more complex individual situations. And this, this scenario, we're still building out exactly what this looks like, but this has so far this year, we've used these individuals to run school level trainings for monitors and drivers at different schools that have different types of programming, as well as they've been doing significant number of ride-along observations and coaching of our one-to-one bus monitors, particularly when there are complex or difficult situations that they can help follow up on. And then lastly, on the final slide here, and then I'm really excited to get to everyone's questions, but just want to jump to the last slide. Just wanted to quickly note a few other steps that we're taking to better support families. So sorry, if you can jump ahead to the next slide. Awesome, thank you. So I think I've been kind of monitoring the chat as best I can while I'm talking. And I think one of the things that I've already seen come up is a number of comments about the wait times on the hotline. And absolutely, I think particularly during peak times and during the start of the school year, this is a significant challenge area. And it's one that we know we need to continue to improve on. And so this is really an area where we're laser focused on what strategies can we implement to decrease wait times for families. And I think this is, partly it's making sure that we are really timely and proactive with robocalls or texts to families when buses are late or when there's not a monitor, so that they know and don't have to call in. Similarly, it's making sure that the Where's My School Bus site is accurate and updated so that families can track their bus rather than needing to call in, and then increasing multilingual staffing across our team to make sure we're ready and able to support all families. I added a note here just in case of any concerns with your student's bus. Again, please contact the transportation team through our hotline or support portal. The school bus is considered an extension of the classroom, and our team will work in collaboration with your school to address any issues that come up. And then lastly, just wanted to highlight and amplify for families that if your student has transportation through their IEP and you have transported them to school due to a interruption, if the school bus didn't come or there wasn't a monitor, want to make sure that families know you are entitled to seek reimbursement. And linked here in the slides is, and we can also put it in the chat, is the page on our website that provides all of the details on that. But so that wraps up my presentation. I know, that was a lot in a short period of time, but really just want to highlight that myself and the entire transportation team are here and ready and want to hear from families and want to work with you to continue to make sure that we're improving the service that we give to students.
Dan, thank you so much. Thank you very much for doing that and so efficiently. And as I said in the beginning, the best way to handle and make questions and be sure that we get to the most number of them we possibly can is to move on to the next presentation, and we will save all the questions for after the second presentation. So hold on to them, keep note of them, or write them in the chat in the interim, and we'll get to your questions in a few minutes. So without further ado, would again like to welcome those who are speaking on behalf of MAC, the Mass Advocates for Children, to talk a little bit more in detail about your rights with regard to transportation services, so they can take it from here. Thanks so much.
Good evening, everybody. Can I just check really quick that you can all hear me?
We can hear you.
So my name's Audrey Wynn. I'm also presenting with Alison Sexson. We're going to briefly introduce ourselves and then get started. So if you could go ahead to the next slide. So like I said, I'm from Mass Advocates for Children, as is my colleague Jakira Rogers. I do want to make it very clear to everybody that both GBLS and MAC are private organizations. We are not affiliated with BPS, nor are we affiliated directly with the state. But I'd like Jakira to briefly introduce herself because she focuses all of her work on BPS.
Thank you so much, Audrey, and good evening, everybody. My name is Jakira Rogers, and as Audrey mentioned, I'm with the MAC team, and MAC stands for Massachusetts Advocates for Children, and I am a program director for MAC's Racial Equity and Access program, which is exclusively focused on Boston Public Schools. You will learn a little bit more about our free and multilingual helpline in this presentation. And I also just want to note that through that helpline, I receive a lot of phone calls from BPS families and look forward to connecting with many of you. So please feel free to use us as a resource to get information, any resources and actionable guidance and next steps that you can take to navigate really any and all education related issues. Obviously, we are all here to talk about transportation, but I also want to note that through our helpline, we are able to assist with any education-related matters, not just transportation. Thank you.
And then, hello, everyone. Good evening. I am Alison Sexson from Greater Boston Legal Services. I am an education attorney that focuses on serving students with special needs within the Boston area. So if your student goes to BPS, or if you have a Boston zip code, or live in Boston but attend the METCO program, I am the attorney you would call to get some help with whatever needs you might have.
So we're going to do a very brief overview of transportation rights. We're going to start with the types of services. The most common that will be included in your student's IEP would be a door-to-door service and or a monitor. This can be a general monitor or a one-to-one monitor. The addition of these is a determination between you and your team based on your child's needs. BPS is required to timely notify you of any issues related to transportation services, whether it be a lack of monitor, a disruption in service, or a lack of bus. They are required to train bus monitors. They did mention this a little bit, but monitors and drivers undergo training. And then a monitor that's assigned to your specific student also receives additional information about your student's needs. And then on top of all of that, as we know, transportation is not always perfect. So you do have options and remedies when transportation fails your student. So the two most common ways are through comp services or compensatory education services, and then also reimbursement. And on the next slide, we explain a little bit more about compensatory services.
So compensatory services are exactly what they sound like. It is a compensation for missed services. If the bus causes your child to miss any kind of IEP service, or if the bus, keeps them from getting to school, worst case scenario, right? The school is legally obligated to compensate your child for the services that they have missed and are owed. And so something that is important to remember is that compensatory services come from Boston's mistakes, and they will make sure that you get those services for your child. And it is very important for you to put those requests even in writing, because sometimes Boston Public Schools will be lax on their offering of compensatory services. So it's your job as a parent to be proactive. Next slide.
So what you as a parent can do, making a record is always a great first step. This can be really informal. It can be a notes app on your phone and just write the date and time that it happened and a general no monitor, no bus, whatever. And then particularly if this is happening repeatedly, communicate this to your team, to your school. As Alison said, and we say, if you call our helpline, we will tell you this, communicate in writing. It is unfortunate that you have to create a sort of record, but it is incredibly helpful. So we always recommend emailing your team. This can be the principal, this can be the COS, but communicating in writing is always best, and we really recommend that. And then the next step would be to request an IEP team. Reimbursement can happen without reconvening the team, but compensatory services are almost always a discussion with the team, so that's a good next step. And you can move on to the next slide.
And so when you have the team meeting, again, requested through email, you can discuss the short-term solutions to this transportation issue and brainstorm long-term solutions. So an example of a short-term solution would be on days that the bus isn't coming, or Boston lets you know the bus isn't coming, make sure, if this is possible, you have another form of transportation to get your child to school. If that's not possible, clearly communicate to the Boston, because they are obligated to make sure your child gets to school. And as BPS mentioned in their other presentation, they are working on making sure that long-term solutions such as hiring more people, properly training, retraining bus monitors are put into place so that you don't have repeated issues with transportation. And like Audrey has said before, like I have said before, make sure this is all written down, ask for the notes after the team meeting, keep a record. And then the other thing you can do is discuss the compensatory education services. That might mean extra counseling sessions, speech services, anything that your child is not able to attend due to bus issues, they must get extra. So maybe if your child is entitled to counseling services once a week, after so many missed counseling services because of bus transportation problems, your child gets counseling twice a week. Just an idea. Next slide, please.
So then the next step is reimbursement, and reimbursement is fairly simple, I will say. BPS does have quite a clear procedure down. They have a lot of information on their website, and reimbursement does not need to be a discussion. You simply submit what you need to be reimbursed for. BPS will reimburse for mileage. So if you drive, they will reimburse for ride or lift shares. They can also reimburse you for T and bus fare. So again, having that record and that list, you can submit that list and say, this is what I need from you. If you do not have a social security number or a tax identification number, you are still entitled to compensation. And again, BPS does have this procedure quite clearly explained on their website. So just keep in mind that you don't have to have that information to get reimbursed. I will note very quickly, this slide has a typo. This link is actually to our website, which explains a little bit more about reimbursement, but the number and the email are to Boston's page, and BPS does have all of this information on their website as well. And then we'll go to our last slide.
And then the last slide is just additional resources. We will, everybody will have access to this presentation after it's over. So you can download this presentation and click on the links yourself if you ever need to use them. As you'll notice, most of these resources go to MAC specifically, since MAC has been working with transportation and BPS for an extensive amount of time now. And so those are the people that you would want to be contacting with these kinds of issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to MAC, thank you to BPS and all of our presenters. That was really, and bravo for staying on time. That's always something we seriously appreciate. Well, with that in mind, as I said, let's turn to the most important part of the evening, and that's getting, questions of our members answered, as many of them as we can possibly take on. I think the way we should start is I see several questions that were in the chat that I'm going to start out by asking a couple of those, and then you'll see Andrea and I sort of alternating back and forth so that we can get to as many of them as we can. One specifically that I saw right away was, if your child misses services, are they eligible for that reason for compensatory services? So if they, miss in-school services, I'm assuming is what the question is about. So Dan, if you and your team can sort of take that one on, I'd appreciate it.
Yep.
Dan,
Wonder if there's someone from the specialized services that wants to take that question.
Sure, that might be, okay, let's see. Can anyone take that question on from OSS, or we should skip to the next one and we can come back to it?
Sure, I'll hop in. This is Zachary Houston. So when a student misses services, the district has an obligation to assess the impact of those missed services on the child, and work to provide compensatory services to remedy those missed services, whether it's due to transportation or a provider being out or an absence, or a lack of a hired person, or with the staffing crisis that we're in, the shortage of people working in public education is certainly a real problem that we're experiencing. So yes, if a student misses any of their IEP services, our obligation under the regulation is to assess the impact on the child and work with the family to develop a compensatory plan that could be any number of resources, as the team just spoke. So it could be something that is more services provided during the school day, or more creative options to remedy or make the child whole again, which is our obligation. Hope that answers the question.
Great, thank you so much, Zach. I'll take one more from the chat, and then let's look at and see who has a question in live time to ask. One of the other questions I heard right out of the gate was what to do when a student has assigned door-to-door transportation and the bus just continually, I think they said 11 days or something, has not shown up. What should that family most immediately do when that door-to-door assignment isn't showing up in the morning?
Thank you for that question. And firstly, I apologize that happened. That absolutely should not be taking place. First and foremost, we'd want you to report that to our team. So call the transportation hotline number and ask to speak to a customer service representative and let them know what you're experiencing, or also go on our support portal and submit a ticket there. There could be, number of different reasons for that. And, it could be that there hasn't been a bus monitor available, or it could be, error on the driver's part or on our part that we need to make sure we address. But first and foremost, we want you to let us know right away. Don't wait. Don't say, oh, maybe the bus is going to come tomorrow. Don't, just make sure that you let us know, because we want to start running that down right away.
Thanks, Dan. Andrea, do you want to grab a couple of questions from the families raising hands?
Yep, definitely. So Dan, in the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned there's about 6,000 students that have transportation related accommodations in their IEP. We are looking, some of the questions that came up in the chat and certainly questions we collected before, want to know specifically what's that on-time performance for those 6,000 students in the buses they ride.
Yeah, I think I saw one question in the chat about this that I tried to respond to there as well. Actually, we route our buses inclusively. So what that means is students with disabilities are not routed separately from other students. We're routing all of our students together. And so there isn't, it's not possible to disaggregate the on-time performance numbers by students with disabilities because they're not riding on a subset of the buses.
So it wouldn't be possible just to say those 6,000 students, the bus number they're on, and then look at the on-time performance for that particular bus and aggregate the data that way?
I guess what I'm trying to say is those students they're not routed on a subset of the buses. They're routed across all of the buses. We're routing students inclusively, consistent with, least restrictive environment guidelines and also, in terms of trying to, create routes that are efficient for all students. So it wouldn't, looking at all of those students, they are, maybe 90% of our bus routes have a student with disabilities on it. Some number like that. It's not exactly that, but
okay.
Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, we'll follow up more because I think we have some more digging to do, but I do want to try and get other people's questions answered. So we had families email us questions ahead of time, and if just very briefly, or if it's easier to just throw it into the chat, Dan, can you just give like a one-liner about what sibling ridership is and where people may go to apply for that?
Yes, absolutely. So sibling ridership is one of the transportation change requests that families can submit. And specifically what a sibling ridership request is a request that a sibling who is either not eligible for transportation or who is eligible just for a different type of transportation, say corner stop transportation, that they can ride the bus along with their sibling who has transportation through their IEP or 504 plan, from the same stop. So for instance, if one sibling has door-to-door transportation, but the other sibling does not have transportation, say they're within the mileage where they would walk to school and not automatically qualify for transportation, a sibling ridership request is for both students to ride the school bus together. We review those based on available capacity on the bus. So as long as there is available seating capacity on the bus, we would approve that request and then provide the sibling with the school bus assignment as well. And you can request that through our support portal, and I can drop the link in the chat to submit a ticket in our support portal.
That would be great. Thank you. Kelsey, I think you have another one from the chat.
Sure. I'm seeing one from the chat. One of the families was asking or expressing their concern with their most recent experience with the monitor line, calling the monitor line directly and experiencing that they both experience hang up after hang up after hang up. So in addition to long wait times that the call is actually hung up on and the person has to engage the helpline many, many times before a call is answered. And I wonder if you can speak to sort of what can be done to look into that, to mitigate that, to support a family whose, frustration is, I'm sure, off the charts about just trying to get you the information you need.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's two things there. One is the long wait times, and this really is a challenge at the start of the school year in particular, and during our peak service times. So 6:30 to 8:30 in the morning, and in the afternoons, usually from around 3 to 5 p.m. Those wait times definitely are longer than they should be for families, and that's something that we're really focused on improving. I think the biggest thing is we're looking at all of the different strategies we can take to provide families with the information they need, so that make sure they're tracking the right bus, so they don't have to call in, make sure they already know in advance through a robocall and text if the bus is running late or doesn't have a monitor, so that we can then really focus our transportation hotline for families who need to call, and really the only way they can get the information they need is to speak to a customer service representative. So we're really focused on different strategies to improve there, as well as just continuing to hire and increase staffing on our hotline during the peak times of the year. So I think that's one piece on the wait times, and certainly if you are at minimum, would encourage anyone to make sure you submit a ticket or send us an email so that we can follow up on your issue. Don't want it to go unheard. Then I'd want to follow up a little bit more directly on the experience the caller's having in terms of the calls dropping. That sounds like there may be some sort of technical thing happening on one or both sides, and so maybe that's something where can get their information and try to connect afterwards to understand what's happening there.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Thank you for that. I'll ask one more and then turn it back to Andrea. I think the other question in the chat was long, but the highlights seem to be pretty much what are repercussions? How do you hold transportation hold drivers, monitors, anyone affiliated with a child's bus ride, accountable for behavior, or whether it's on-time performance, maybe a metric they have less to do with, but that was basically the question. And it was specifically for students with disabilities. Kind of what's your take on that?
Yeah. So I think important to kind of keep in mind that transportation is driven by many different factors, and there's many different individuals working hard every day to get the bus, to pick up all our students and get the bus to school. I think drivers and monitors are the face of that, and they're a very, very important piece of that work. But oftentimes, as you said, say if a bus is running late, that isn't necessarily the driver's fault. That it could be a routing issue, it could be any number of different things. And so I think number one is wanting to look at each situation and individually and try to get to the root of it and understand, okay, what is driving the issue here, so that we can make sure that we're addressing the right problem. The other thing I would note is, that we really in BPS consider the school bus to be an extension of the classroom. And so what that means is, we need to work very, very closely with the teams with student support teams in schools to make sure that we're fostering, I think, safe, inclusive, accessible environments on the school bus to help, set up students, drivers, and monitors for success. Then when if and when there are, reported issues, certainly, we would follow the investigatory and progressive disciplinary processes laid out within drivers and monitors contractual bargaining agreements to make sure that we handle those appropriately. And I think really importantly is making sure that we're communicating with families throughout the process, so they understand not just, hey, I've submitted this and it's gone into a black box, but what are the steps that we're taking, both to fully run this down and also to make sure that there's like short-term and permanent resolutions and solutions in place, so that students are not missing transportation services while we're working through whatever the challenge is.
Okay, thanks, Dan. And I see alive and well, many, many hands up. So Andrea, do you mind taking that piece on?
Yeah, I'll just ask one last question that kind of came up in the chat through some multiple questions. A couple people, Diane and Anne Marie, they're wondering if you can request a change in the bus assignment, like the pickup location, which it sounds like the info was provided in there. And then the other question is, is there any standard turnaround time that they might be able to expect to get a response on that change request?
Yep, I think that's a great question. I think I'm hearing a lot of kind of trends around the response times in September, which definitely not surprising. That is, you know, very much on my mind as an area we need to keep improving. We'll send out a backpack letter in June, but I'll take a moment here to highlight this as well. If you know, so change requests don't roll over year to year. And if you know that you're going to have a request for an alternative drop off or a sibling ridership or anything like that, we typically say if that request is in by the first Friday in August, we'll guarantee that it will be reviewed in time for the start of the school year. So as you know, you'll know whether or not we can accommodate that before the start of the school year. Then I think we have seen in September right now, those response times have for requests that came in late August and September, those response times have definitely gone up. They're probably, anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks right now, which is well above what we would like them to be. Typically throughout the year, we look to respond within 7 to 10 days. And we're kind of, now that we're end of October, getting back to that point now.
If somebody wants to follow up on the status of a change request, how should they do that?
Yep, they should reach out, call our hotline. Certainly, if you're calling it for something like that, I would suggest calling it off peak hours where there won't be much of a wait. And if possible, if you can reference the ticket number, when you submit that request on the portal, you should get a ticket number. And if you keep that and reference that, it'll be very easy for the customer service representative to check on the status of that for you.
Okay. All right, thank you. And there's a few individuals with their hands raised. We'll just start at the top of the list. Yesenia, Pina, I'm going to ask you to unmute and you can ask your question.
Hola, ¿la puedo hacer directamente? Perfecto, ok. Buenas noches. Yo tengo un hijo bajo el programa de IP. El transporte pasa, el bus literalmente pasa por la calle de enfrente, tiene que caminar 2 esquinas. Tiene que caminar 2 esquinas para poder esperar el transporte. Dice que debe de pasar a las 8:13, pero hemos estado ahí hasta las 8:40 y el bus pasa muy tarde. Y cada vez, todos los días, él llega al colegio, a la escuela, con una clase y clase y media ya iniciada, o sea, ya pasada, la pierde. Y eso me preocupa. Gracias.
So Charlie, do you have a suggestion on how we should get Yesenia's question translated?
The interpreter has to come into the channel.
Could the interpreter for Yesenia come into the English channel?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you write that? I can read it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll just go ahead and read it. I saw that you put it in there. Sorry about that, Tracy. I'll read it. No need to come in. So the translation of Yesenia's question is, I have a child in an IEP. The bus passes in front of the house. He can't pick him up where he needs to. He walks to the corner. It's at 8:13 a.m. At 8:40 a.m. the bus driver drives by or passes by. It's very late and they're missing class and they're very concerned.
What I'm going to do, Yesenia, is take down your information and have a Spanish-speaking member of our customer service team look into that and follow up with you tomorrow so that we can help get that resolved.
Thank you. Let's see what else I have here. the next one, I'm going to ask you to unmute if you see that pop up on your screen.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Nikki. I have a 4-year-old daughter who has an IEP. I have a question about what the BPS protocol and the transportation protocol is for a child that with an IEP that is injured on the school bus. I would specifically like to know what prompts a parent being called, what prompts EMS being called, and what that protocol looks like, and how I could get a copy of that protocol.
So any time there's a student injury on the bus, or other student incidents on the bus, drivers should be pulling the bus over and radioing into the safety desk. And then we have, our bus vendor has road safety supervisors on the road. And as necessary and depending on the situation, from there, we would either deploy a road safety supervisor to the bus, or if necessary, have the driver call, EMS to respond to the bus. And then in those situations, proper protocol would be for the family to receive a call from our customer service team, letting this is what's happening, this is what we know so far. And then certainly after that point, we would, again, with the school bus being an extension of the classroom, we would gather additional information, written reports, whatever's needed, make sure to share that with the school, and then work in conjunction with the school to follow up and make with you.
So how do I get a copy of the incident report if the school doesn't have it?
Yep. So it sounds like there's a specific situation here again that we should be making sure to connect on and follow up on. But the incident report should be going to the school, and then a copy of that is just redacted for any other student information could be shared with you as well.
Okay. How do I make sure that somebody follows up with me?
If it's possible to get your information, I don't know.
Put your name. Sorry to interrupt. And yeah, make sure you put your name and your contact information to the extent you're comfortable with putting that right in the chat. You don't have to put in, details about the incident, but we'll be sure to flag it both for Dan and keep it on file as well. And we'll be sure, I promise you, we'll make sure somebody responds to you.
You could also just direct message it to either myself or Kelsey if you're more comfortable with that.
Yeah, also fine.
And yes, the answer that we get, we'll follow up in general for the larger group. Let's see. I'm going down to the order here. The person iPhone, which probably a lot of people are logged in, but I'm asking you to unmute. You'll see a little message pop up on your screen if you'd like to accept that request. And
hi, my name is Carrie. My son doesn't take the bus, but I am part of the parent committee at the school, and I represent one of the SpEdPAC program. My concerns are: is there any cameras on the bus to monitor what goes on, what happens? Because I know sometimes things do happen, but sometimes not only the bus monitors are the ones also doing hurting children as well, but some children are verbal, so they're not able to explain what's going on the bus as well. So are there any cameras to make sure things don't happen, make sure the kids are safe, just to make sure where parents are able to see what's going on if anything happens and things like that?
Yep. So all of our buses have cameras. One camera that is facing outward, capturing what's happening outside the bus in front of it, and one that is mounted at the front of the bus, facing towards the rear of the bus. And so we are able to review and download and save that footage when there are specific incidents to follow up on, serious safety concerns or other incidents that need to be followed up on. one thing I would highlight is those cameras have a rolling memory. And so footage is only typically available back 7 to 10 days. And, if we need to, of course, we can access that footage and then download and save it. But if there is an incident, we'd certainly encourage you to report that right away so that we can, if we need to review footage and if it's appropriate to review footage, make sure that we can get to that in a timely manner. And then.
So my concern is because even then, like I said, some kids are nonverbal, so you never know what's going on. As some of them can't say what's going on, they can't move around, they can't tell you what's going on especially a lot of kids. So my thing is, what if something happens, you don't know what's going on? But are there any, I want to know, is there cameras for parents are able to see what's going on, just to keep an eye on their children? Because I know some parents are concerned about their children and what's going on. Just like daycares, a lot of parents are concerned about their daycare and what their kids are doing. So I want to know, is there any way to have cameras where parents are able to monitor their own children as well?
No, I apologize. No one is able to monitor those cameras in real time that way. And I think the other thing I want to highlight is cameras are really just one piece of this. When there are incidents on buses, we work with the school to interview the students. We, get incident reports from the monitor, the driver, and, all of these things are important for us to understand and to gather when we need to review, situations that arise on the bus.
Okay. That was just my main question. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Kelsey, I think you still have kind of a list of questions from the chat. Do you want to throw one?
Do you want to take one more phone call from one more caller?
Oh, sure. Yeah. A caller.
caller.
Somebody has their hands raised. Just another iPhone user, just again, going down the list here. You'll see a little message popping up asking you to unmute. For some reason, it's not quite working, so I'm not sure if, oh, there we go. Hello, can you hear us?
Hello.
Hi, we can hear you. Do you want to ask your question?
Le habla Carrie, la mamá de Darlene Guzmán. Yo estoy teniendo una situación un poco embarazosa, en donde el busero pasa una esquina ante él. Mi niña tiene un one-to-one. Entonces, a la semana él viene quizá 1 o 2 veces y la recoge. Las otras veces yo tengo que llevarla. Después de esperar desde las 7:20 y 25 hasta las 7:50, hasta las 8, entonces tengo que sacar mi carro y llevarla y faltar a mi trabajo. Cuando duraron una semana sin buscarla, cuando yo llamé, la respuesta que me dio la persona que me atendió era que a la niña ni el busero ni el monitor me la aguantaban. Fue muy doloroso para mí como madre. Yo vivo sola con mis hijos y sentí que mi hija me la están rechazando. Después de eso, entonces empezaron a buscarla, un día la recogen, otro día no la recogen. El lunes me llamó el viernes la señora Laura Corso, ella misma vino el lunes, la recogió, me dijo, ellos con el monitor o no monitor tienen que llevarte las niñas. La recogió el lunes con ella y el martes. Ya ni vino ayer ni vino hoy. Yo me supongo mañana tampoco viene. No recibo una llamada, no recibo una carta, no recibo un email, no recibo nada. Solamente me dejan la niña parada en el autobús. Me la dejan todos los días, entonces es traumante para ella. Ella no entiende. Yo sí entiendo el rechazo de la niña. Me afecta como madre, pero yo no le pedí a mi hija venir con una condición.
Andrea, I can share what mom just said. So mom said she feels very embarrassed to share this, but she's having an experience where the bus monitor is absent frequently during the week and her child is not being picked up. Mom says that she was told that the bus driver and the monitor can't handle her daughter. So she feels like her daughter's being rejected. And she has had to arrive late to work in order to drop off her child at the school.
Dạ,
And
tôi thấy câu hỏi này á, thì hơi không bất tiện, nhưng mà tại vì tôi có đứa con đang cần đi xe bus, nhưng mà có máy quay phim cho con của tôi cảm thấy là cái máy quay phim của con tôi không có được tốt cho lắm như lúc con của tôi không có đi được xe
We
bus.
have an interpreter in the room. Hold on a second here. Vietnamese interpreter.
Yes.
You have to join your channel. You're actually.
Oh,
you're
I'm in
actually
the
speaking.
thing.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that.
Good, Joshi, thanks.
yeah, and then the last part, she said she did connect with Laura, who did ride the bus with her daughter. And she told mom that she is supposed to be getting picked up, and they haven't picked her up with her child yesterday and today. So mom is just sharing her concerns about her child and wanting to, receive this service. She said the last thing she said, she didn't choose to have her daughter have a disability. So she feels distraught by this process.
Well, thank you for for having the courage to share that, and I apologize that that's been occurring. I'm glad to hear Laura is already working with you. She's one of our program directors for transportation in the Office of Specialized Services that I mentioned earlier, who's really focused on following up on these individual situations. So I'll try to take your contact information from the chat and make sure to touch base with her so that we can make sure this is resolved. And then I would just highlight again to make sure that you can submit for reimbursement for any of those days where you've had to transport your student.
And I just wanted to say, I'm also on behalf of our organization, I hope everybody hears, especially with a caller like that, never, ever, ever be embarrassed. That's why we're here. That's why BPS is here. That's why our other guests are here. We're here, and there's no version of a question that is too simple, too ornate, too complicated. It belongs here. And if you have it, probably many other people have it too. So I'm really, really glad you exercised courage to ask it. I hope the rest of you will keep doing the same. Dan, just one more question coming that's sort of related to that. If you can take one more very quick one. I think what that brought up and resonates with one of the other questions is, what should a family do? How can a family initiate? That caller had access already to Laura, right? But how would a family trying to get ahead of a circumstance that already seems out of control or unsafe on the bus, how do they initiate a process that allows them access to someone training a monitor or a driver? How do they initiate that with a coach at school? Do they call transportation? How does that work?
Yep, I would definitely, if you have concerns about that, would encourage families to reach out first to the COAS at their school. Our team is working closely with the COASs and the school teams across the district to make sure that we have, all of the individualized, student bus behavior plans and information we need to train our one-to-one monitors. We're working really closely with the schools to set up school level trainings for our one-to-one monitors. And so I would, definitely start there. And then, the COAS will reach out to our team and we'll take whatever steps are needed. Sometimes it will be having Laura or Sean ride the bus. In other cases, we'll have the, connect directly with the COAS and make sure that they give the monitor the information they need. So there's a number of different paths we would take.
Okay. All right. Super. Thanks so much, Dan. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to Oliver. Andrea, we'll sort of wrap it up.
Yeah.
But, thank
you for your questions. I know there are still a few hand raised. Please put your questions in the chat. If we didn't have time to elevate your question, we will, collect all of these and send them to whomever we need to get your questions answered. And you can look forward to those responses being sent out in our newsletter next week. So please subscribe to that. One thing I wanted to just kind of turn it back over to our round two of presenters, our crew from Mass Advocates for Children and GBLS. And I just want, I think Jakira, if you want to just give 1 or 2 minutes kind of wrapping up some additional services that your organizations can provide and support for families.
Yes, definitely. And again, I just want to thank SpEdPAC leadership for having us present. It is really a privilege to be able to listen to the experiences of families. While I am not associated with the district in any formal way, I want to apologize on behalf of the district. I really appreciate the high level of transparency and vulnerability that a lot of families have shared. And a lot of what I hear through our own individual helpline, which is completely separate from the BPS helpline, is affirmed through a lot of what I'm hearing. So I also just want to again share that that's what I'm here for. I am here to offer support and guidance. Sometimes the transportation department doesn't provide satisfaction. Sometimes you don't get an answer that you want. And I am here to help you address that and kind of work through and brainstorm a pathway forward. So I want to remind families that are here to please reach out to me, and I will put my direct contact information in the chat, as well as make sure that everyone has access to our free and multilingual helpline so that families can get support. I am really passionate about ensuring that all families have access to what they need, and I will do whatever it takes to get families there. So please know that I am here as a resource. Again, I only focus on BPS, and I'm here as an ally, I'm here as a support, and I want to be here to make sure that BPS is accountable and gives you and your family the experience that you deserve. So with that, I will put my information in the chat. And again, please reach out, any question. Again, does not have to be specific to transportation, but that's probably most frequently the questions that I get. So I'm more than happy to help. And again, I work in collaboration with the district very often. Dan and Carrie know me super well. And we are all here to, drive the positive education outcomes that families need. And sometimes you need external support, and that's why organizations like MAC and GBLS exist. So I'm more than happy to help and more than happy to make sure that there is a positive pathway forward that you are satisfied with.
Thank you,
Jakira, very much.
Just drop the contact info in the chat. That would be great. We are approaching 8:15. We need to shift to the last part of our agenda here. So Jack, you're still sharing your screen. Thank you so much. But I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you, Andrea. And thanks to everybody over in transportation, BPS and MAC and GBLS. I learned things. I've been at this for a couple of decades, and I keep learning things in these presentations. So well done, and thank you. So now we are going to move on to our special election. So a couple of things. If you're not a SpEdPAC member, i.e. you're a parent, a foster parent, you're acting as a parent, you're a legal guardian, you're, guardian ad litem. If you are representing a child in BPS who goes to a Boston school or is in an outplacement of some kind, you are eligible to vote. Please stick around. If you're not one of those people, you don't have to stick around because none of this, I don't know how much of interest it'll be to you, but that's your call, of course. I should also mention that if your kid is not in BPS yet, if you're a 3-year-old or you've moved from another location, or you're in a private or parochial school but want to enroll in BPS and have asked BPS to evaluate your child, you are eligible to vote, all right? And of course, if you're actually a student and you've reached the age of 18 and you're still in BPS, you haven't hit 22 yet, then you're also eligible to vote. I know this font is incredibly small on my screen right now. I'm going to zoom in on it so you can read it right now. You don't have to just take my word for it. At least I'm going to try to. I may be at maximum. Oh, here we go. Hopefully you can read that. Please, if you have any questions about whether or not you're eligible, put your name in the chat and we'll try to get somebody to direct message you with an answer around your eligibility. So how are we going to do this? we're going to first thing we're going to talk about is the roles and responsibilities for the secretary, the board secretary. Then we're going to ask for nominations, yourself, or you can nominate somebody else. Your name, that name will be added to a Zoom poll, and we will give that person obviously an option to, I think we're sticking with this one, yes, to speak very briefly. Tell us your name, tell us where your kid is, and tell us what about being on the board, how you think you can make a difference. So let me show you the roles and responsibilities. Let me zoom in on this a little bit here. First off, you should know everybody on SpEdPAC, everybody on the board, we're all parents and we're all volunteers. Nobody getting involved in SpEdPAC, or almost nobody, came to their position by way of being like a professional board member or professional nonprofit person. We value everyone's voice. And if you've got a child with a disability, you have as much of a right and as much of a role to play on the board as anybody else. So don't let inexperience deter you, please. The role of an officer, there's a lot of lifting here. As you can see, we have weekly officer board meetings on Mondays. Times are subject to change depending upon how people's schedules are. We have weekly board meetings on Thursday evenings. That's a little less flexible. Actually, it's really not flexible. We have these general monthly meetings that we're at right now. We also have every other week meetings with Kay Seal. She's the Chief of Specialized Services, essentially the point person for special needs issues. That's on Tuesdays. Again, we may need to change that time, but it is right now an hour and a half. We have quarterly meetings with Superintendent Mary Skipper and her entire team. And we deliver a presentation to the school committee twice a year. This year we did it in September. Usually we're in October. We'll do a follow-up in May. And although you're not expected to present, we do want your input about, what are our goals in September and how did we do in May? Now, there's also a whole bunch of ad hoc meetings with BPS departments, and that is on a subcommittee basis. We have a subcommittee structure. We encourage all of our board members to get involved in the issues that you care most about, or that you have most knowledge about, or that touch your life the most, and to participate at that level. Obviously, with subcommittee work, you're going to be meeting with BPS people or outside groups, and those meeting times and length, it depends entirely upon the issue and who we're speaking with. So, quick overview. Here's the 4 officers. I'm the chair. Basically, the chair's job is to preside over the meetings and set agendas and designate subcommittees. The vice chair acts in support of the chair and acts as the chair if the chair can't make it to any of the meetings. The secretary is all about publishing board meetings, taking notes, emailing reminders to people, and collaborating. And this collaboration piece is very important. It's really key because you're going to be working with us to set the agendas, to promote time management during the board meeting. That's critical because, as you can tell, I tend to talk a lot. And also to make sure that we're aligning on topics that we need to discuss from meeting to meeting, so we have continuity as we progress through the year on issues, and especially in meetings with the BPS leadership. The treasurer acts to manage funds and any accounting issues. They also present a financial report. So what does this all mean? There's a lot of there's a lot of lifting done on the board. And we don't want to sugarcoat that. But we do want to say that this is a remarkable opportunity to participate in the community and to contribute to the community in ways that perhaps you hadn't thought you'd be able to. If any of this interests you at all, please consider running. Madam Vice Chair, Madam Treasurer. Oh, I should also mention one other thing. Our secretary resigned, and in the interim, our treasurer, Andrea, has stepped up to be our functional secretary. She's done a remarkable job. I really cannot thank her enough. Being treasurer and secretary is way too much to ask for anybody. But she did it, and she did it remarkably well. And I should know that if you come in as secretary, Andrea has created a really great set of processes and procedures and documents, templates that we use and we've become completely used to. So you'd be walking into basically a turnkey position that Andrea has created. I'm not going to ask Andrea to train you because Andrea has already done 100,000 things, and that's way too much. But if she had some time and is willing to show you some stuff, I should hope she would. She's really done a great job, and I think anybody that's stepping in as secretary is going to really have a lot of support. So, without further ado, unless you've got something to add, Madam Secretary, Madam Interim Secretary, or Madam Vice Chair.
Nope, I would just echo that whoever's interested in running, please feel confident that you'll be supported to contribute to the board. And we're excited to have more members.
Mm-hmm. Anything, Kelsey?
No, I would just urge us so we can capture people's excitement and enthusiasm to take and look for nominations. And yes, it's actually a really incredible experience. It's a lot of work. But it's the really, really best kind of work. You can really see the fruits of your efforts and be engaged with families. And it's a really exceptional spot at an even bigger table to see and be a part of something really meaningful. So highly encourage.
So without further ado, we're taking nominations. If you're interested in nominating yourself, somebody else, please, in the chat, put your name, put the school that your kid is in, and put your email, and put your phone number, because we got to be able to get in touch with you, or else this is all pointless.
Jack, I suggest that we just take names before we start asking people to put their personal information in the text to everyone. We can get in touch with them, the individual, afterwards.
That's not a bad idea, Charlie. You can, Megan is asking, can you have a private chat? You can direct message to Andrea, as she just put in the chat. You can also direct message to myself or Kelsey. That's fine.
I'm not exactly sure if general guest participants can do direct messaging. It's just folks that are co-hosts.
They should be able to. I've received direct messages from other non-co-hosts. But I would.
Taylor Marie says we can. Okay, good. Yes, Taylor Marie says just change the default everyone recipient to whichever of us you want to direct message. So once we collect the names, we'll have Charlie add them to a Zoom poll, as I mentioned, and we'll make that available to everyone.
I think we have one nominee, at least the one that I got a private message from, Geraldine Jarmillo. And yes, we
Megan
could-
asked, so there'll be a few days for people to consider and or submit their names. No, there won't. We're really limiting it to just right now.
because we have to do the vote during the meeting.
Yeah, per our bylaws. And Taylor Marie, can we join this group even if we're on our own school council? Yes, absolutely.
So I think we have just one nominee, Geraldine. If you want to, let me see if I can find you and have you unmute.
Andrea, there's a question in the chat about the commitment, like how
I
long.
see.
Alright.
How long
Oh.
it's for how long is the commitment in months and in years is a question from
Oh, that's a good point. So we'll have our, it's a short-term commitment. So in May 2024, SpEdPAC will have their annual elections. So this position will be up for re-election at our May general meeting, which is like the end of May.
And obviously, if it turns out to be too much or something changes in your life, you've got some personal issues, you resign. We understand that. That's fine.
Are there any other nominees? Did Jack or Kelsey, did you get any direct messages?
No, but I do see one raised hand and I just want to make sure that's not someone raising their hand to nominate themselves. Do you
No,
see?
I think that's been up for a while.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry.
So I'm going to ask this nominee to unmute and just share a little bit about themselves. Bear with me. I'm just trying to find this in the list. Okay. All right. Geraldine, I've asked you to unmute. You might see the little thing pop up on your screen. Jack,
Andrea,
perhaps.
Are you able to chat her to see if maybe she responds to you?
I did, and I'm waiting for a response. So perhaps while we're waiting, Jack, do you want to go on and talk a little bit about the board member at large position?
Yeah, board member at large. So board member at large is everybody basically who's not one of the four officers. We meet weekly on Thursday evenings at 6:30, as I mentioned earlier, and this monthly meeting, as well as attending the quarterly meetings with Superintendent Skipper. We also ask that you help to facilitate, not solo, but one of a couple people to help facilitate a general meeting, like Andrea and Kelsey did tonight, and that you support other subcommittee work. So again, whatever your passion is, or whatever your expertise or interest is, anything that pops up you think you can contribute to, you'll be able to join a subcommittee and help as you're able to. The ad hoc meetings, again, that depends upon your subcommittee work. You'll be meeting with various people at BPS or outside groups. And you'll be able to help us with the presentation at the beginning and the end of the year. We should note our meetings are so far this year have all been on Zoom. As I think everybody would agree from these monthly meetings, Zoom just makes it a lot easier for people to participate. And I don't think anybody's voice is lost in this process. But that said, we have the resource fair in November, and we've got a holiday party in December. So you will actually get to meet some of us face to face.
Jack, would you like to open up the floor for nominations for the board member at large position?
Yes, I would. Thank you. So anybody that would like to, we have one open position for board member at large. This is to fill out our full contingent of 8. If you have any interest in running for board member at large, please put your name in the chat or direct message Andrea or Kelsey or myself. Taylor Marie's asked us, what's a resource fair? Resource fair is literally an in-person meeting where outside service providers and people from within BPS can tell us about what are opportunities for our kids. Summer camps, enrichment opportunities during the year, specialized programs, meetups. It's a pretty...
Oh no, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, that's all right. It's an opportunity for us to connect the dots between our members and the people that are helping our members.
And if I could just add one more plug, because I'm working on this pretty hard, it's going to be a really, really wonderful time. I would really encourage everyone, even if you can't come for the whole thing. And I would also emphasize it's a wonderful time for families within BPS to connect in person with one another over really good food, really good fun. Yes, there will be childcare, so you can actually have a meaningful conversation with another adult. Surprise, surprise. But yes, when we say resources, we mean there will be tables and representatives at those tables that are there to both give you information, tools, contacts about, a whole myriad of things, summer opportunities you may not have known about, recreational things, the arts, sports that are all geared towards students with disabilities. So it's going to be a really great time and really relaxed. Come as you are.
Yeah.
And one more thing, interpretation will also be provided for families that are still here to speak other languages.
Oh, thank you, Joshi. Yes.
Thank you, Joshi. So, Andre, you have their information for our secretary?
Yeah, but unfortunately, if they can't come on to accept the nomination and, answer the question, I don't think that we can take a vote here. Unfortunately, maybe they sent me their info in error.
Brianna asked, can someone outside of the SpEdPAC be on the board member? Well, if you've got a child or you're caring for a child with special needs and they're school age, yes, you can be a board member.
In Boston Public Schools.
Yeah, yes. Boston Public Schools, yes. Like a family member of an IEP child. Hold on a second. I can actually pull up our bylaws. Let's find out.
I can answer what's the question, Jack?
Can a family member?
It should be somebody who's acting as a guardian on the as for the child. So like a grandparent, a parent, a foster parent.
Persons acting as parents,
Right.
legal guardians.
Step parents.
Right.
That nature.
Does that answer your question, Brianna? Child grandmother. I'm personally, I don't have any problem with that. I think. Foster parents acting as, if the grandmother's acting as a parent, then yes.
Yeah, if the grandparent would be the legal guardian.
Yeah.
Acting in that capacity. So I think at this point, Jack, we need to accept nominations or I'll probably call it because we're well past the 8:30 end time.
Yeah, we are. So we're going to close the nominations. Last chance, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What do we have?
Well, our next general meeting will that we meet formally like this on Zoom will be at the end of January. So we will, I guess, take it back to the board and vote on some options on how we can fill this vacancy for the short term. And we'll have to just come back and present it to the general members.
Okay. If anybody thinks about it and has an interest in fulfilling one of these roles, please, by all means, get in touch with us. Call our hotline, send us an email. Smoke signals might work. I don't know. Semaphore. But give it a thought. So unless we have anything else, Madam Vice Chair, Madam Treasurer, no? All right, then we look forward to seeing you all in November at the Resource Fair. Thank you all for coming and have a lovely night. Bye.
Thanks so much to all. Good night.